So I'm just going to show you removal of everything on the center console with it out of the car, because it's going to be easier to do that. The trim, I'll show you on a different part of the video how to actually remove these bits down the side here. But to start off with, you'll have that piece. And before I start, all of this is shown in the interior, or a lot of this is shown in the interior trim video that I made. So have a look at that. I'll put a link in the description. But we're going to remove the piece off the side here, the one that sits up the front here, which slides, that goes onto that screw just there. That needs to come off. We need to unclip the surround from that, and then we can lever up the button console here. There'll be an electrical connector there. You can push forward a little tray here and remove that. The PDK knob, that'll be on there like that. That just twists like that to do that. I oftentimes find that's easier if it's in drive, so move it into drive first. Otherwise, the sort of the angle on this makes it a little bit hard. So remove that, just sort of, once it's rotated like that, it'll just pull straight up and off. Then we can lever up the cover on the gear selector. At the front here, the PCM actually sits over the top of this, so you can't just pull this straight out, and removing the PCM is a bit of a pain because of all the connectors on the back. But what you can do, because the PCM is sitting there like that, is you can pull those 4 screws out, pull it out, and then once it's out, still connected to the back, you can actually just pop this out, move it to the side, and then just push the PCM back in again, and then you can go underneath here and actually disconnect all the connections to that. That's a far simpler way of doing it, rather than actually remove the PCM itself. At the back here, we need to remove this tray. Again, there's have a look at that video on interior trim removal. There's the interior motion sensor which sits under there, which is a bit of an encumbrance to try and remove, but that needs to come out. You've got the connection to the 12 volt outlet for the cigarette lighter back here. And then from there, we need to remove this thing here. There are a number of connection points. There are 2 screws on each side, one screw there, one on the other side, and there are screws here and here, so remove those. And then there's this little clip here, and the actual part of the dashboard, which actually screws over the other side of that, basically it comes in here, and it's actually got a little hole there, and it just goes over that little clip there, as well as sits on those knobs there. So what you need to do is just get a little screwdriver and just pop that off, and that will easily come out. And then with those 6 screws removed, the actual cover on the top will just come straight off. It's just held in with a bit of a clip, or 2 clips at the back here. When you're actually putting this on, you're going to push it in at the front there, clip it into the clips and around those knobs on the actual dashboard. And then once it's in there, you're going to push it in those clips at the back. So that's held in the right spot, and you can see there's slots here that'll automatically put it in the right spot, and then you can put those screws in. And then from there, we need to remove the PDK controller. You'll have lots of electrical harnesses and stuff in here. The PDK selector, there are 4 screws, and I'll just turn it over so you can see. There are 2 on the front there and 2 at the back. The electrical harness will actually be cable tied in at the front here and the front back there prior to actually going in the connection point at the back, so you just have to unclip those. And then the PDK controller will come out, but you'll need to disconnect it from the actual cable itself that goes to the back of the car. And the way you do that is you just push that in and then rotate that around like that, and then the cable itself just pulls straight out, okay, and then you can rotate that back around again, and then the selector will just come out. And then once you've got it like that, this thing here will actually stay connected to the center console, and then all you'll have is the electrical harness to disconnect down here after you remove the trim, especially on the right hand side. To remove these trim pieces, these 2 pieces here on each side, even though that one sits underneath that, this one actually has to come out first, and then that one comes out afterwards. And the reason for it is if there's a whole bunch of clips along the top here where this thing actually gets pushed down into the aluminium frame of the center console, and it can only come out when this is actually removed. And it's designed to actually come out first. And there's a bunch of clips that are just pressed in here, and then once that is actually off, then it actually comes out of some rubber stoppers at the back here. If you're removing the center console, then you would have all of this removed, so this is actually clear. But for example, if you just want to remove the carpets and you don't have to remove the entire center console, then what you can do is there are the 6 screws that actually hold on this big plastic piece that's the top cover of the center console. If you remove these 2 here on each side and then just loosen that one there, this will just unclip out of those clips at the back, so you can actually lift that up like that. And that's the thing that's going to give you access down the back here to actually remove these rubber stoppers. So the way this works, you're going to pull these out, and it's sort of just jammed in a little bit at the back there. So there are 3 clips up the front and another one there. And once they come out, and this thing's quite strong and flexible, the way this works at the back, there's a rubber stopper there that is slotted into the aluminium. So you can lift that up to pull that out like that. And then this one at the back actually needs to slide forward and up and out. So there's a little tab there. You might need to push that in this way a little bit to push it forward. It's a bit of a squeeze, but then that will come out like that. And just to show you what's happening with that, you can see there's a slot, so it goes down in that one, then backwards, and then once it's back into the correct spot, then that one can go down in. And so it's the reverse of that when we're actually installing. You're going to put this down in there like that, slide it rearwards, then that front one will go down as you're sort of pushing it behind that piece here. It's a bit hard to show you whilst I'm trying to stand here, but then once that's down in there, then it'll clip into the places there, and all the way along there. And once that piece there is out, now all the clips are free all the way along here, and all you do is pull this straight up like that, and then that'll come straight out. There's a whole bunch of clips and things in here, as well as some other things, little hooks that slot into there. So to install, you're going to put it on there like that, and then just push it down into place all the way along, and then that piece is going to go in afterwards. This is what's called the upper part of the tunnel support, which is the thing that holds the PCM. When it's in the car, there's a single screw down there that attaches it to the actual center console. There's a bracket here. This is actually part of the center console, so that actually comes up like that, but it can't come out separately before the center console, because on that big bracket behind the dashboard, there's actually some pins that go in there, and it sits like that over the top of it, so this thing cannot move up or down. And so the only way to get it out is actually bring it out as part of the center console, the big aluminium bracket, or remove the center console and then remove it out afterwards. The reason you can actually put this in, or the reason you can actually get the center console out, even though that's hooked up like that, is when you actually remove the center console, you sort of do that, you sort of rotate it up at the back, and that actually lifts it clear. And then when you're actually installing the center console with this thing in place, then you'll be putting it like that, push it all the way forward until it lines up with those screw holes at the side, and then rotate it up, and it will actually slot into that spot there. It's also held in by 2 E8 torque screws that are connected to that big bracket behind the back of the dashboard. And so once you have stripped everything off the center console, you've got the PDK harness there. I'm just going to tuck everything up the front there. Along the right hand rail here, you've got the wires that run all the way down the side here, all the way back to the cigarette lighter at the back. That's clipped in at a whole bunch of these little barbed clips, so you'll need to disconnect all of those. Just push those in, and they're all the way along the side here. There are loads and loads of those. As well as up the front here, it's one of those things that grips with metal on, and it's pushed onto a tab up the front here, so you'll have to pull that off. Feed that harness out. That'll actually just sit down the right hand side. Up the front here, it's a bit hard to see, but that harness, those wires that run down the side, it goes into a sort of a big sort of square plug that presses into the right hand side over here, and from the right hand side, again it's barbs, you just squeeze those together and push that out, and once that's all like that, then this whole thing can just slide up and out. When you're installing, have all of these leads bunched up the front here, and you're going to feed them into that hole in there. This one here can sort of sit down the right hand side and then get fed up later on. And we're going to slide it in between, like that. Make sure all those wires go up and don't get stuck in anything. Black plug that I talked about before, you'll need to feed that into the right place, and then once we're there, everything just slides forward. Just be careful that nothing's getting damaged. The actual wires that run down the right hand side, it actually goes through a thing in the middle here before it clamps onto that thing that I talked about before it clips onto there. So it goes down the middle until about this position here, and then it actually runs down the right hand side. And then once that is all in place, then those 8 connection points of the 2 there, and there, as well as the 2 on each side up the front here, where that is, that one there, they get put in place. With the center console out, things that we can see here now, here's the main, so the electrical cable goes from the alternator to the front, to the fuse box, etc., and to the battery. We've got the PDK selector, that's, when you pull that like that, that's taking it out of park. When you put it rearward, that actually locks it into park on the transmission. And also we have the airbag controller just there, and I think that is the rotation rate sensor from memory for the stability control.